Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And I know what you're thinking. 2 long-form videos in 2 days? What is this, 2020, 2021? I know. It's actually because I had no more shorts footage left, and this is what I had to upload, so I guess I am gifting this all to you guys, and I hope you do enjoy it. In today's video, you're going to see me making chocolate-dipped madeleines with a hint of orange zest. Absolutely divine tasting. My daughter, I think, had about 4 or 5 of these cookies. And then I'm also going to be making paint your own sugar cookies as well as the LOL doll fondant cake. I have a lot of tutorials on this channel similar to the things that I'm going to be making in today's video. So I thought I want to talk about something I haven't really talked about on this channel. And I'm surprised that there are still things left, but there are still things left in the baking world. And I wanted to talk about mom guilt and running a baking business. Now, I realize that I don't really run a quote-unquote regular baking business anymore, but running my channel is somewhat of a business, and obviously I focus on baking. I wanted to start this off with saying that I know quite a few stay-at-home moms, and I actually find it pretty amazing that there are still people that can afford to stay at home. And I think if you can afford to do that, that is absolutely fantastic. But I think much of the stories of what I hear from home bakers are that they wanted to spend more time with their kids, or they wanted more flexibility in order to be with their family. But living off of one income is nearly impossible, and who can blame them with this economy? But I remember when I was still on maternity leave, but I wanted some extra cash, so I started making cakes nearly right away when I physically could. If you know my birth story, you know that with my first, I was severely ill, couldn't stand up straight for months and months. Finally, when I could stand up straight again, I went straight to making cakes. And I felt all types of mom guilt at this point, but it was coming at me from all different directions. First of all, I just felt like the maternity leave that we receive is not quite enough financially, and it takes a little while for it to kick in as well. And because I ended up having my daughter earlier than expected, I worked less, which meant that I needed to find a way to make more. So I turned to cake decorating and making cakes and selling cakes as well as sugar cookies. But I would feel guilty for the fact that I wasn't dedicating every waking moment to my child. And especially because I had been so sick, I actually didn't change a diaper of hers for at least a month because I had an IV attached to me, so I was unable to do so. So on the one hand, I felt like, okay, this is my moment to shine. This is my moment to finally do all of the motherly things that I have not really been doing for the first month. And yet I felt like I still need to financially provide and pull my weight. So after continuing on and cake decorating, selling cakes, taking extra shifts at the bakery, really just trying to do as much as I could to financially support everybody in my family. And keep in mind, yes, my husband did work at this time, but we were still pretty young and we needed to get as much as we could. So I kept working really, really hard and taking on a lot of cake orders and just kind of fitting my daughter into where I could possibly. Now, keep in mind, of course, when they're under 1 year old, they are napping a lot still, and everything is very scheduled, so you can kind of work around that. I'm sure a lot of you home bakers can relate to that, but eventually I hit this point in time where I realized I want to make memories with my daughter, and what good is all of this extra cash flow if I'm not actually utilizing it to spend on my daughter right now? And sometimes this is where I feel a big push-pull. It's sure, maybe we're not using those financial gains right now, but it really is for their future. And it's this balance between making enough money, doing enough for them to provide them with opportunities, but then also spending time with them. And it's very interesting. My husband is a very hands-on dad. When he is not working, he is spending time with them, he's doing things with them, he's also helping them with the day-to-day things. And of course, when he's not around, then I'm doing those things. And sometimes we do those things together. But I still feel guilty, even though there is a parent that is fully there, fully functioning, and is giving it 100%. And I'm not sure if this is just the way that us mothers are programmed, But I think sometimes there is this big debate between working moms and non-working moms. And I once had somebody say to me, I'm not like you, Ashleigh. I really put my kids first, and that's why I choose to stay at home. I think this is so wrong on so many levels, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I think this is where mom guilt stems from. There is this idea, either perpetuated by society or just perpetuated by our own minds, that we need to be with our children all the time in order to show how much we care or how much we love them. Now, I do think that obviously being present as a parent is very important, but something that I've learned over the years is there's being present and there's being overly involved. Now, this is a baking channel, so this isn't me really giving parenting advice. This is more me talking about my mentality and how it's changed over the years in order to not only better my baking YouTube business, but also just help me get past this feeling of guilt for working and guilt for providing. One way that I switched my mentality was thinking about the fact that because I do have activities that are independent from motherhood and that do not necessarily engage my children, when I am around my children and I do set aside that time, I'm very engaged in those moments and I'm very dedicated to my children. Sometimes I find, and I kind of experiment with this over summer, I find that if I'm around them all the time, it kind of ends up as less engagement with me and them because they're around all the time. So I just think, well, they're right here. I don't have to be, 100% focused. Another thing that I've both observed and just kind of repeated to myself is that the children don't necessarily want to be around me 24/7 either. As they've gotten older, they crave more independence. They'd like to be kept entertained, don't get me wrong, but they don't need that constant parental attention all of the time. I've also noticed that most children really do thrive off of scheduling, and our days are very scheduled now. Now, this is one area in which my home baking business really would always throw me for a loop. Because I was always taking on way too much, I would never be able to really schedule things that well because at that time, too, I was a little bit less experienced, so more issues with cakes would happen. Nowadays, I don't make as many mistakes and things run a lot more smoothly, and I'm able to kind of gauge how long something is going to take me. So I would say, if I could give you any advice as home bakers, take on a little less. I know it's a little less money, a little less funds, and I get that because that was something of a priority for me when I was running my home baking business. But scale back a little bit. Just give yourself a little bit of time to truly schedule. Working on scheduling is one of the things that really, really helped subside that mom and parent guilt. Predictability, being scheduled, it really helps ease the anxieties as well that might be coming from your children. Because of course, when they say something like, I really, really want you to play with me, it's a lot easier to quell that when you say, oh, you know the schedule. At this time, I'm going to be able to do that with you. And I know that my kids personally really thrive on things like that because they know it's a guarantee. It's not going to be a broken promise, which of course, broken promises is just going to make that feeling worse for yourself. And I think above all else, we have to realize that our children are continually growing. They're continually changing. Being present is important, but we might be present in different ways throughout their life. For example, when I was making all of these treats for my daughter, it wasn't like when she was 3 or 4 years old where she was asking me to play with her and I'm like, but you want the nice Hulk cake, right? And then having to explain that. When I was working on all of this stuff, my daughter was buzzing because she was so excited and she knows that in order to create something like this, a lot of hard work goes into it. And honestly, this to me is the presence that she's looking for. Dedication to something that is also very important to her. And are we spending time face to face actually doing something while I'm creating these things? No, but she also sees the greater purpose. She sees that it's for her. It's not like I'm a mother to teenagers yet, so I'm sure there will be a different set of expectations and presents will look different then. But the biggest thing that I've taken away from having younger children is that being present, being there for your children does not always have to mean face-to-face contact 24/7. I also did make it a priority to pare back in some ways. I also fixed things with my main career so that I could have less of a commute and make sure that I was able to gain time in the areas where it was possible. And not to lump all children into the same category, but I do remember playing independently a lot as a child, and that was totally fine because I also remember my parents showing up to every skating competition, taking us to Chuck E. Cheese, going on vacations, and doing all of that stuff. So I hope that if you have been feeling a little bit guilty about how much you're working on your craft, how much time you're having to dedicate to baking, maybe it's just a little revamp of a schedule that you need, but also remember that you are doing this in part for your family as well. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys, and be sure to check out my new podcast as well as my second channel. There will be links down in the pinned comment below. Bye!
In a very risky business way.
Why?
Well, I just feel like some of those cookies may stick, and then you're going to end up with the wrong shape.
It'll be fine. Trust in the red seal.